Hey guys, so today I want to talk about how to quote poetry because there's some rules that are a little bit different with quoting poetry. Okay, so first of all, as we talked about a lot in seventh grade, um, line breaks and stanza breaks in poetry are really important. So when you quote poetry, you want to quote it exactly and you want to maintain those line breaks. Okay, so the way that we do that is when you're quoting multiple lines of poetry, you put a slash between the lines so your reader knows where that line break was. Okay, so example for if dreams lie, slash, life is a barren field. Okay, so that slash there tells me where my original line break was. Okay, now when you're quoting more than 4 lines of poetry, you're going to treat it like a block quotation. So you're going to indent the lines and not use quotation marks. This is just like we talked about with our block quotes. Okay, so for example, in Langston Hughes's poem Dreams, he states, and I do my colon, just like we talked about. Remember, if you're doing a block quote, no matter what, you introduce it with a colon. And then we have our passage, okay, no quotation marks. So if it's 4 or more lines of poetry, you treat it as a block quote, okay? Now, when quoting from a poem, same as with everything else, you must introduce your quotes. Quotes cannot stand alone just because we're quoting poetry instead of prose. It doesn't matter, okay? So in Langston Hughes's poem Dreams, he uses the metaphor, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly, to emphasize the pain of losing one's dreams. Now, everything else with quotation marks is the same, right? You still want to make sure that if you're skipping lines, you're using your ellipsis. Skipping words, you're using your ellipsis. If you're skipping multiple lines, you'll use the 4 dots. You'll introduce them with a comma or a colon or with nothing, depending on the situation. Comma if you're doing like the poet states. Colon if it's after a complete thought. No punctuation if you're just embedding a short section of the poem. Whatever it is, all those rules kind of stay the same. Okay? All right, so as you've probably guessed, we're going to be doing some response literature writing about poetry. So hopefully this will help you when you're quoting your poems.